Hi there, it's Matt here, and welcome back to the podcast. Tonight, I want to tell you a story about a drink and a fruit and a number that millions of people are quietly betting their sleep on without ever having seen it. The number is 8. Hold on to it. We will come back to it, and when we do, it is going to feel a great deal smaller than it should. Here is how the thing began. In the first months of 2023, a young woman on TikTok posted a short video of herself making a bedtime drink. A few weeks later, a wellness creator posted her own version, and that second video took off the way these things do. Without warning, without logic, the algorithm deciding overnight that the entire planet needed to see a woman pour cherry juice into a wine glass. The creator who lit the fuse had a reason for the drink that was particular to her. She had polycystic ovary syndrome, her sleep fell apart in the back half of her cycle, and she had found that this concoction seemed to help. Hold on to that detail too. We are going to come back to it at the end. Almost nobody who copied her ever mentioned it. People rarely copy the reason, they copy the recipe. And the recipe could not have been simpler. About half a cup of pure tart cherry juice, a spoonful of magnesium powder, a splash of prebiotic soda on top, a lemon lime can of something like Olipop served over ice in stemware so that the act of not drinking alcohol looks as much as possible like drinking alcohol. They called it the Sleepy Girl Mocktail. Within a year, the hashtag had been viewed tens of millions of times. Grocery stores noticed something they almost never notice, which is a sudden, inexplicable run on bottles of unsweetened tart cherry juice, a product that, for most of its commercial life, had been bought mainly by gout sufferers and the occasional marathon runner. A sour, ruby-colored juice no one would drink for pleasure had become, more or less overnight, a sleep aid with a cult. Now here is what interests me. A folk remedy went global in a matter of weeks, tens of millions of views, a genuine market disruption. And underneath all of it, propping up the central claim, the load-bearing wall of the entire edifice was a body of scientific evidence so small, so preliminary, so charmingly underpowered that you could fit every human being who completed the most cited trial into a hotel conference room and still have most of the chairs empty. To understand how a sour cherry ended up in everyone's wine glass, you have to go back about 100 years. The cherry in question is the Montmorency. It takes its name from a valley north of Paris, which is the kind of aristocratic pedigree that does a sour cherry no practical good whatsoever. The Montmorency is not a cherry you eat. Bite into one off the tree, and your face will do the thing a child's face does when handed a lemon. Its destiny, for most of human history, was the pie, a fruit redeemed only by enormous quantities of sugar and a crust. It crossed the Atlantic and found its true home not in France, but in Michigan, on the wind-sheltered slopes above the Great Lakes, where the water moderates the temperature just enough to keep the spring blossoms from freezing. Here is the hinge of the whole story. The very things that make the Montmorency unpleasant to eat are its medicine. That astringent, mouth-puckering quality comes from a dense load of deep red pigments, anthocyanins and procyanidins, the polyphenols that color the fruit and pinch your tongue. They are, in the language of the laboratory, potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. The fruit's defect is its drug. The reason you would never snack on it is the reason anyone studies it at all, which is why the cherry's first real career in medicine had nothing to do with sleep. It had to do with sore legs. A small early trial gave 14 college students a tart cherry juice blend twice a day for a little over a week, then put them through the kind of brutal arm exercise that leaves you wrecked for the better part of a week. The students on cherry juice hurt less and recovered faster than those on placebo. Over the next decade, tart cherry juice became something of an open secret in the endurance world. Marathoners, footballers, the anti-inflammatory pigments doing quiet work on battered muscle. People with gout and arthritis started buying it too. For a good while, that was the cherry's entire health identity. The cherry became famous the first time for fighting inflammation. Keep that in your back pocket. We are going to need it. Then, a few years before the athletes ever got hold of it, a laboratory analysis pointed an instrument at this same humble fruit and found something nobody was looking for: the sleep hormone, melatonin, the thing your brain dribbles out into your bloodstream every evening as the light fades. We make it ourselves in a little gland buried deep in the brain. What nobody expected was to find it sitting inside a piece of fruit. The Montmorency, it turned out, carried meaningful, measurable amounts of it, several times more than its Balaton cousin. You can see instantly the story the world wanted to tell. A fruit that contains the sleep hormone. Eat the fruit, get the hormone, fall asleep. Clean, mechanical, the kind of explanation that fits on a label and in a 15-second video. Except it is not, and the reason it is not is the most quietly devastating fact in this entire story. The dose is wrong. When people take melatonin as a supplement, they take between 0.5 milligram and 5 milligrams. The melatonin in tart cherry juice is not measured in milligrams. It is measured in micrograms, thousandths of a milligram. A typical serving of juice delivers a melatonin load somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times smaller than a single supplement tablet. There is a small wrinkle, mind you. When 20 healthy adults drank concentrated tart cherry juice for a week, the breakdown product of melatonin did rise in their urine, which tells us this tiny dietary dose is biologically available. It crosses into the system. It just cannot mechanically do the work a milligram dose does. So if tart cherry juice actually helps people sleep, and we will get to whether it does, the tidy melatonin story cannot be the whole of it. Either the effect is mostly in our heads, or something else is going on inside that cherry. Something more interesting.
Okay, admission time, I've probably eaten more protein bars in my life than I've blinked, and I'm always on the hunt for the very best. Then I found David protein bars. Each bar delivers 28 grams of protein, just 150 calories, and 0 sugar. That's the best protein to calorie ratio I've seen, and the taste is legitimately good. Protein isn't just about muscle, it's essential for metabolic health and for keeping you full. And David's unique ratio makes these the most satiating bars out there. Here's the kicker. Demand has been so high that the full lineup of 8 flavors is currently sold out on the website. They'll probably be back in stock by the fall or autumn for us Brits. In the meantime, you can find them on Amazon or use the store locator on their website to grab them nearby. Try them out for yourself at davidprotein.com/mattwalker for a special deal for all you folks. Again, that's davidprotein.com/mattwalker.
Let us deal with the question everyone actually cares about. Does the stuff work? There is a small body of human trials. Every one of them is modest in size. They point gently and inconsistently toward yes, with caveats large enough to drive a truck through. The first serious attempt took 15 older adults with chronic insomnia and ran them through a crossover design, each person their own control, 2 weeks on cherry juice, 2 weeks on placebo, washout in between. The cherry juice beat the placebo. People spent less time lying awake after they had first fallen asleep. A real, measurable, statistically significant improvement. And then the researchers did something you almost never see, which was to tell the truth about the size of it. The benefit, they wrote, was modest, comparable to valerian, the herbal remedy, and equal to, or a bit better than some studies of melatonin itself. But, and this is the part the internet always amputates, it was considerably smaller than what you get from the actual evidence-based treatments for insomnia. 15 people, 1 pilot. A whisper, not a shout. A second small trial gave 20 healthy adults concentrated tart cherry juice for 7 days against a placebo. Melatonin's breakdown product rose in the cherry group. Sleep numbers nudged in the right direction. 20 people, healthy ones, another whisper. And then came the study everyone quotes, the one with the number. A pilot trial out of Louisiana, published in a peer-reviewed therapeutics journal, reported a headline finding so clean and so quotable that it has been ricocheting around the wellness internet ever since. Tart cherry juice, the study reported, increased sleep time by 84 minutes. 84, nearly an hour and a half of extra sleep, and not measured by a questionnaire or a fuzzy sleep diary, but by polysomnography, electrodes on the scalp, the gold standard for actually measuring sleep. You can understand why that number went everywhere. It is enormous. It is precise. It is exactly the kind of fact that ends an argument. Now, remember the number 8. Here it is. The Louisiana team set out to study insomnia in adults over 50. They screened volunteers. They randomized 11 of them. And then 3 turned out to have sleep apnea, a different disorder entirely, and were correctly excluded and sent for proper care, which left the people who actually completed the trial and produced that famous 84-minute result. 8 human beings in a single pilot study are the empirical foundation of a number that has, by now, been recited to tens of millions of people as established fact. This is not a knock on the researchers, who did exactly what a pilot study is supposed to do and labeled it honestly as preliminary. The sin is not in the study. The sin is in what the world did with it. Stripping off every qualifier, losing the sample size, losing the word pilot, and converting a fragile 8-person signal into a slogan. The belief is the size of a stadium. The evidence is the size of a dinner party. If you do what the wellness internet rarely does and pool the trials, which is what a proper meta-analysis is for, the picture sharpens. The largest pooled analysis of tart cherry for sleep gathered 8 randomized trials together and ran the numbers 2 ways. When sleep is measured objectively, with electrodes and wrist actigraphy, the machines that do not care what you believe, tart cherry significantly improves total sleep time and sleep efficiency. When sleep is measured subjectively by questionnaires, by sleep diaries, by how you say you felt, the pooled effect is not statistically different from placebo. An independent second pooled review reaches a directionally similar verdict. That is a more honest and more interesting answer than the slogan. The objective machines say something is happening. The subjective questionnaires do not catch it. A real biological signal hovering at the edge of detectability, easily drowned out by the noise of how a tired adult feels about their week. But there is one more chapter to the cherry story, and it is the most beautiful one, because the Louisiana team were not actually chasing melatonin at all. They were chasing the bodyguard. To explain it, I have to introduce you to the villain, an enzyme with a name almost designed to keep it out of polite conversation. Indoleamine 2,3 dioxygenase. Everybody just calls it IDO, and I would encourage you to as well. Your body builds melatonin on a little assembly line. The raw material at the very start is an amino acid called tryptophan. Tryptophan gets converted step by step into serotonin, and serotonin gets converted into melatonin. Tryptophan in the front door, sleepiness out the back. But tryptophan is a popular molecule, and your body has another use for it. The enzyme IDO grabs tryptophan and diverts it down a completely different hallway, converting it into something else. Every tryptophan molecule IDO captures is one that will never become serotonin and never become melatonin. It is diverted, burned for other purposes. And what switches IDO on? Inflammation. There it is, the thread from your back pocket. The very same anti-inflammatory power that made tart cherry juice an athlete's recovery drink is about to become the explanation for the sleep. When your body is inflamed, and chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the quiet hallmarks of aging, IDO ramps up, starts eating your tryptophan, and you are left with less raw material for the very chemicals that put you to sleep. So the deeper hypothesis was not the cherry adds melatonin. It was the cherry protects the supply line. Take one of those red pigments, drip it onto inflamed human cells in a dish, and you can watch it shut IDO down in real time. In the 8 people who completed the trial, the blood work agreed. The marker of tryptophan being diverted went down, and the marker of inflammation went down with it. Do you see the reversal? Everyone credits the hormone. It has got melatonin in it, but the hormone is barely present. A few micrograms, a rounding error. The more compelling story is almost the opposite. The cherry may work not by adding the sleep chemical, but by defending the factory that makes it. The recovery drink and the sleep drink are the same drink, doing the same anti-inflammatory job in 2 different rooms of the body. It is not the melatonin, it might be the bodyguard.
A long-standing partner of today's podcast is Element, spelled LMNT. Element is a sugar-free electrolyte drink mix, and for me, it was the sugar-free part that made me start using it a while back. And again, I buy my own supply just to stay objective. Beyond having the electrolytes in the right balance, the other reason I'm a fan of Element is that it's scientific. If you look up the people who created the company, you'll find some pretty heavy-hitting physiology, biochemistry, and pharmacology knowledge baked into the product. And again, all of that comes without any sugar. Now, here's the update. Element's lemonade salt flavor, which used to be seasonal, was so popular that it's now permanent. You can get it year-round. Happily, I badgered them, and they have agreed to give you fine folks a free 8-count sample pack with any purchase of Element if you use the link drinklmnt.com/Matt Walker. So for free product with your purchase, just visit drinklmnt.com/Matt Walker. And as I said, you'll get some free product.
That brings us back to the wine glass and the other 2 ingredients. First, magnesium. Magnesium has a glittering reputation in the sleep world. It is supposed to calm the nervous system, ease the muscles, dial up the soothing neurotransmitters. It sounds right. It feels right. So what happens when you gather up all the actual randomized trials of magnesium for insomnia in older adults and look at them together? The most recent pooled analysis amounted to 3 trials, 151 people total. When the numbers were pooled, the estimated benefit was something like 16 extra minutes of sleep. And that increase was not even statistically reliable. The reviewers graded the quality of the evidence as low to very low. which is the polite technical way scientists say, please do not build anything on top of this. One small mercy to offer in the name of fairness. That meta-analysis pooled across different chemical forms of magnesium, citrate, oxide, glycinate. And the absorption literature is fairly clear those forms behave differently in the gut. Organic salts like citrate generally absorb better than magnesium oxide. The differences are not as enormous as supplement labels suggest, and the dominant determinants of whether magnesium does anything are your dose and your starting blood level, not which form you bought. But pooling across forms does soften any signal a single form might have produced. The honest verdict on the magnesium in your mocktail: probably not doing much, possibly doing a little, certainly not the workhorse. Then there is the prebiotic soda. For a long time, the honest answer here was essentially nothing. That answer is now just out of date. 2 small randomized trials in the last couple of years, one of yeast mannan in 40 healthy adults measured with a wearable sleep tracking patch, the other of a partially hydrolyzed guar gum in 61 healthy older adults measured with a sleep questionnaire, have each reported a positive sleep quality signal. Neither used full polysomnography. Neither has been independently replicated. The honest framing is no longer nothing. It is minimal, emerging, and far weaker than the cherry literature, even at the cherry literature's modest size. You may, by the way, have been told that eating 2 kiwi fruit an hour before bed will transform your sleep. The single trial behind that claim ran without a control group. Nobody got a placebo kiwi, which I grant you is a hard thing to manufacture. Every participant knew they were eating the magic fruit, knew they were in a sleep study, and reported 4 weeks later that they were sleeping better. That is very close to the textbook definition of the placebo effect, the most powerful, most reliable, most underestimated force in all of sleep medicine. Same pattern as the cherry. The pattern is the point. So let us add up the famous mocktail ingredient by ingredient with the evidence laid bare. The tart cherry juice, a handful of small trials, plus a pooled analysis that finds a real but modest objective signal and no reliable subjective one. The magnesium, 3 trials, 151 people, an effect that may not exist. The prebiotic soda, 2 small recent positive trials in different fibers, nowhere near enough to call it established. That, on paper, is the ledger. And yet, this is where I have to be fair, because the cynical read is too easy and it would miss something true. I think the Sleepy Girl Mocktail might actually help some people, just not for any of the reasons printed on the can. So, should you make the Sleepy Girl Mocktail drink at home tonight? Think about what the ritual actually is. It is a person, at the end of the day, deliberately not pouring a glass of wine. That alone is enormous, because alcohol is one of the most destructive things you can do to your sleep architecture. It sedates you fast and then fragments the back half of your night. A generation of people quietly swapping the nightcap for a non-alcoholic substitute is by itself a genuine win that no trial on cherries will ever capture. It is a person performing a calm, repeatable, screen-free wind down, measuring the juice, stirring in the powder, sitting with the glass. And a consistent pre-sleep routine is one of the few sleep interventions that has the kind of evidence the cherries wish they had. It is a person who expects to sleep better. An expectation, as we just saw with the kiwi, is not a bug in the system. In sleep, expectation is half the machine. So the drink may well work. It may work because of a few micrograms of melatonin, or because a procyanidin is calling off an inflammatory enzyme, or because of 16 unreliable minutes of magnesium. Or it may work because it replaced the wine, calmed the evening, and gave a restless mind something to believe in. The trials cannot tell those apart. One more thing worth saying before the practical bit. The woman who put the recipe on the internet in the first place was treating polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, a condition where the sleep disruption is not speculative. Pooled across 18 studies and more than 16,000 women, PCOS carries roughly a 6-fold higher odds of sleep disturbance. An adult PCOS obstructive sleep apnea prevalence sits around 32%. The recipe's origin story has more peer-reviewed weight underneath it than almost anything else in the mocktail's history. The irony, of course, is that almost nobody who copied her copied that pot. So here is what the evidence suggests is actually worth doing. First, the gentle yes. If you enjoy the drink, if it feels like a calm and pleasant evening ritual, if it is replacing alcohol, you may keep making it. It is far better company at 10 in the evening than a glass of Cabernet. The signal under the cherry is small but real. The ritual around it may well be larger than the ritual's ingredients. Second, the realistic expectation. If you are scoring it against the 84-minute slogan, you will be disappointed, and that disappointment is on the slogan, not on you. Reasonable target, a small nudge, perceptible some nights, invisible others. Third, the cheaper, fairer version. If the cherry is the only ingredient with a genuine trail of human trials behind it, then the cherry is the ingredient you actually pay attention to. Use pure, unsweetened tart cherry juice. Montmorency on the label is what the trials used. Concentrate diluted in water works the same way and costs a great deal less per serving. The magnesium and the prebiotic fizz are optional. Fourth, the things that actually matter more. The trial literature has a 6-decade head start on the mocktail. Keep a consistent bedtime and wake time, even at the weekend. Get light into your eyes in the morning and out of your eyes in the evening. Keep the bedroom cool, a degree or two below the room you spend your evening in. Do not drink alcohol close to bed. Do not drink caffeine after lunchtime. None of these will trend on a video app. All of them outperform anything you can pour into a glass. Fifth, when the drink is a clue, not a treatment. If your sleep has fallen apart for biological reasons, dramatically worse in the second half of your menstrual cycle, changed around perimenopause, shaped by polycystic ovary syndrome, or your partner has been reporting that you stop breathing in the night, the right next step is not a different brand of juice. It is a doctor who takes sleep seriously. The recipe creator was, in her own way, doing exactly that. Noticing a hormonal pattern and trying something. The bit of her story worth keeping is the noticing. The bit worth replacing is the wine glass with a clinic appointment. Sixth, and this is the gentle one, inside the supplement and wellness internet, you may have caught the habit of expecting any intervention either to fix everything or to be a fraud. The mocktail is neither. It is a real, modest, charming object in the world. Half social ritual, half mild biology. And the evidence will support it being held that way. Lightly, honestly, with your eyes open. The supplement industry, by the way, will continue to present the 84-minute number with characteristic modesty as if it had been measured in 84 million. Sleep specialists will continue to recommend with characteristic patients going to bed at the same time every night. The two professions have not yet found a way to meet in the middle. A folk remedy went global on the strength of a number that came from 8 people. A fruit got famous for a hormone it barely contains, while its most interesting trick, the same anti-inflammatory chemistry that once soothed marathoners' legs, now quietly defending your tryptophan from being burned alive, went almost entirely unmentioned. The market, as it always does, moved faster than the knowledge. So enjoy the ritual, distrust the slogan, and the next time someone tells you with total confidence that a fruit will buy you an extra 84 minutes of sleep, you will know to ask the only question that ever really matters. You will know to ask, how many people exactly did that happen to? 8. The answer, for now, is 8. Thanks so much for listening. I really do appreciate you tuning in. Please take care of yourself, enjoy your waking days, and sleep a sound sleep this night. Bye for now.